Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today, I am here with my friend Hope to talk about Amphibia Season 2.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, and this is actually kind of like a collaboration kind of thing because Hope and I actually did a similar kind of thing, except it wasn't video, it was audio. We did a similar kind of thing after the Owl House Season 1 wrapped up for her podcast, Hope Makes Chris Watch Cartoons, there, which I'll link below. So let's kick it off by actually asking you the same question you asked me when we started that podcast, which is, how did you get into Amphibia?
It was always kind of on my radar for a while now. As I was watching Owl House or other shows and stuff, I kept seeing it like in the Disney Plus corners or commercials for it. But what really was it was the pandemic. I very suddenly found myself with a lot of extra time. So I was just like, all right, let's do this. Let's like binge the show. And I binged season 1 within like a few weeks. I kind of really want to go back and rewatch it because when you watch something so fast, everything kind of blurs together. Like I actually legit thought the cannibal episode was in season 2. And I was like, where is this episode? I just pretty much binged it and finished it a few weeks right before season 2. So it's all kind of like one big block in my brain. So how did you find the show?
So the interesting thing with this is if you do end up listening to our Owl House thing after this, Hope and I kind of swap stories with this because because Hope was watching Owl House in the beginning, and then during the pandemic I caught on and started watching like halfway or a bit more than halfway through season 1. And then this time I've been watching Amphibia since the beginning, and then you caught on a bit later because Amphibia had been running for an entire season. But like, next kind of question, what really drew you to the show? Like, what did you really find enjoyment in? What really drew you to it? Like, why do you love it as much as you love it?
I'm a very like character over plot person, and so I really love slice of life storytelling. It's actually like my favorite thing to write. Finding adventures and like little things in every day is just kind of a thing that we do in life. We find these like little adventures. But I really enjoy also how the narrative shifts now the second season, because it went from the slice of life world building, character building, slower pace, and then it kind of shifted to almost like a Lord of the Rings type of epic story where you have this journey and you have to go this long way, and like there's these like developments with the characters and stuff like that. And I actually really enjoy this kind of storytelling where every season is different story and tone. I'm almost done with Star Versus, so I'm saying this as someone who is very close to finishing the show. But I've noticed so far with 3 seasons of Star Versus The Forces of Evil that it does the same thing where like season 1 is very slice of life. Season 2, like it opens the world of Muni more. And season 3, like has these developments and it changes in tone and stuff. And I liked this kind of storytelling, but I feel like Amphibia has perfected it because another show we love, being Star Wars Resistance, does the same kind of thing where season 1 is a very different tone and story from season 2.
Mm-hmm.
But the reason I really, really, really like this kind of storytelling is it takes out the dreaded F word, filler. It takes away filler episodes because you never know what's important and what's going to be coming to play later when you have these kind of this kind of storytelling. So like I was thinking about it, and like I said, the whole show kind of blurred together, so I kind of forgot about some stuff. But I was looking back at the episode Wally and Anne, where they go on this like crazy cryptid adventure trying to find this like cryptid in the woods, and it's the Moss Man, and it just seems like a fun adventure, something about Wally and Anne bonding. But then we see the Moss Man chained up in the basement of the castle, and that first season episode suddenly becomes so much more important. So it kind of puts an emphasis on every single episode, and every single episode is important, whether it's not it's for plot. The character work is so important that like what we love about this is the characters. I love a show that plays within its own rules too. Like I have written here, I also love the reality checks. What I mean by that is how they play within their own rules where like, yeah, Anne's introducing them to phones and stuff, but they still have these moments where Anne's like, do you hear dogs? And Polly's like, what's a dog? I love these like playing within the rules of the world. And like those are the moments that always make me laugh the most, where I was watching Quarrelers Pass, where Anne's like, here's my phone, call me. And Hop Hop's like, they don't know what that means. And Strick's like, I don't know what that means. And it's so funny. I love playing within this world. So what about you? What are some of the things that you love about the show?
You were talking about how it's like Resistance and how it's a very fun show. That's kind of what immediately drew me to it. Because, like, while I always kind of had Owl House on my radar and I wanted to watch this show, I think I particularly like clung immediately to this show because of just how fun it is. And there was some stuff I was going through in 2019 that was just particularly harder for me. So this show and Resistance really became like comfort shows for me. And they brought me that like joy I really needed. And I just really love this show for so many reasons. Like the characters are all relatable in their own kind of ways. And it's so interesting how complex a lot of these characters are. And not just the characters, but the ways of communication. Like there have actually been like multiple cases where I've ended up using this show as an example for like assignments in my communications classes, because the communication in this show is just so complex and there's so many aspects of it that can just tie so well to normal communication. Like I love how this show just it dives so well into like different parts of friendship and how friendship works, and when does friendship like take the twists and turns that it does, and when do we need to recognize the flaws in our friends, and just all of
Toxic
those different
friends.
levels. Yeah, toxic friends, exactly. So I just really found this show something that was both fun, but as you were saying, also very like had those kind of story elements that were still woven in and very prominent even in those episodes that some people might call filler. Yeah, I just really enjoy this show so much for so many different reasons.
This is one of the best shows I've seen in a long time that does a really good job with world building. Like I'm just looking at the background that you have behind you, and just how visual the show is. Like it has such gorgeous backgrounds. I love the character designs. I love the creature designs. Like something like Domino too. It looks like a cat, but it's clearly a caterpillar. It's like those kind of like world building things are so beautiful and
Mhm.
so nice. And they stay within, just like I said, the rules of the world. These are still frogs, so if there's a fly around, they're just going to be like, yeah. I love that kind of thing about this show, especially modern shows. It's very easy to kind of break the rules of the world for humor. And it doesn't cross that line, except for I have one notable time, and it's in my notes, and I will talk about it. But I think it's very easy for modern cartoons to try, can almost date themselves by trying to make like modern jokes.
Mhm.
But when they just make jokes within the rules of the world, it makes a show more timeless because it's not dated from that era. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah, the animation too. So good. So many good
So
animated moments. Yes. Who is your favorite character?
okay, so I kind of cheated because I wrote like three things. No, but I actually really do love everybody on the show. I give me a good ensemble cast any day, and this is a great ensemble cast. Even the characters that I like love to hate, I love because I love to hate them. I just have a huge soft spot for Grime because anybody who knows me knows I love villains. And so when Grime first showed up, he was like this like big tough guy who had like no sympathy. And I really enjoyed watching his journey with Sasha. Like some of my biggest laughs of season one was when Sasha's like encouraging him like with positive reinforcement, and he's giving these like wide toothy grins, like ah, trying to look like a nice guy. But like seeing him go through season two with Sasha, like their relationship is really, really interesting to me.
Mhm.
Especially because in True Colors, Sasha was like, and say hello to your parents for me, not say hello to my parents. So I'm just like, does she have bad parents? Like, is she not close? Is Grime really her first father figure? That's a really interesting thing I want to see.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
I've been really enjoying watching him go from like this terrifying leader to like soft boy dad to like tired dad to like revolutionary. I love Grime, but I have close second spots for Marcy and Ivy. Because I see you have Marcy, but so I'll talk about Ivy. Like I was that tomboy character when I was a child, so like I really feel Ivy because like that was my childhood, which where I was like, get dirty, adventures, let's go like, tackle things and fight everything. But no, not my hair. And
But definitely, I agree with everything you said. Obviously, especially with Grime, like it's been interesting to see the way his character, like while he retains a lot of his rough exterior, still like there's still a lot more depth to him as we've gone along. And when you were talking about like the soft spot, I just immediately my brain immediately went to the harp scene because I'm just like the harp scene. Never get enough of it. Yes.
that his dad energy was like, he was like, you have to leave all your knives here, Sasha. She's
Yes.
like,
Yes.
Dad, why? He's
Oh
like,
my
leave
god,
your
those
knives here.
episodes. Yes.
I love it. Oh my god. The dinner was such a great episode. I loved that one.
Oh my god, yes.
So who's your favorite character and why?
So, despite my hair, today, my favorite character
It's so
is
cute, by the way.
actually
It's so cute.
oh, thank you. My favorite character is Marcy, and if anyone follows me on
Mhm.
social media, they probably know that. Um, so yeah, I was traumatized. It was very
We're all
rough.
yeah.
Before we get to obviously the sad stuff, Marcy is my favorite for so many reasons. She is so pure, so sweet. Like I have like a little group of comfort characters, and like she's in there with like Niku and Mabel and all those people where I'm like, oh my god, you guys are just so pure, and I want to like hug you because you're just so nice. And like, and then when we get to her deeper levels, like her insecurities, like I relate a lot. Like she
Mhm.
is so much like me, and like I'm not the smartest person. I'm not like a nerd or anything, but like the fact that she is very bubbly around her friends. She's very outgoing around her friends. She's very upbeat and quirky and just the best, but like at the same time she still retains a lot of insecurities. Like even before we get to true colors, we see like in the scavenger hunt episode she acknowledges that like she struggles more with making connections compared to Anne. Like she's someone who has layers of insecurity despite the fact that she can still have a very outgoing personality, and I just relate to that so much because I am someone who very much is that way, where when I'm around my friends I'm very outgoing and I'm very like upbeat, but when I'm not around my friends, I can be very insecure, and even around my friends, I can be insecure. And then getting to true colors, I relate a lot to that kind of separation anxiety kind of stuff. And while I probably like she's a teenager. Any of us can make like
Yeah.
a
She's
stupid
13.
decision back then. Like I can't say if I would actually make that kind of a decision, but
Yeah.
the fact that like I have experienced that kind of thing where I've had very few friends. So when I have had friends, I have experienced losing friends. So I just relate a lot on that level of feeling like you got to like hold on to those friendships as much as possible, and then also having to recognize it goes back to her flaw of recognizing others outside of yourself and like acknowledging how others feel and caring
Mhm.
for others. And it's like you can get so wrapped up in that insecurity and that anxiety and that feeling like, oh, I have this good thing, I've got to keep it because like these friends actually care about me and I'm too scared to go out and try to make new ones. And for me personally, because of all the experiences I've had where friendships haven't worked out or people haven't wanted to be friends with me, where it becomes that extra weight on my shoulders where I'm like, I really want to keep this good thing I have. And so I just relate a lot on that level as well. She's just a character who's very pure, and like I love her for her pure moments, but also the more that we got with her other layers too, I continued to relate on her on those levels too, which I really appreciated. So I love her. So it hurts right now knowing what's happened.
First of all, you're like, I know I'm not a nerd. Honey, there are all sorts of nerds. There's no difference between sports nerds
Yeah.
and animation nerds and video game nerds. A nerd is a nerd. If you love a thing, you're a nerd. But no, I feel you. Like Marcy was my kind of second follow up with Ivy. I mean, I was kind of a lot like that too when I was younger. And I will tell you now, it's okay to not have a lot of friends. Like I know a lot of people, but my core group of friends is probably about 10 people. I also went through that as well, and I still go through that. I'm 33 and I
Yeah.
still get scared of losing people.
Mhm.
Especially since like now I'm starting to reach an age where people do leave because of life or having families and stuff like that. And it is a journey of growing up. I have definitely lost friends where not like because something happened, but just because time, like they either moved away for jobs or they
Mhm.
had children and so their lives are changed. Like being in different points of our lives is a big part of growing up. And I like how they tell the story with Marcy.
Mhm.
Because I think that is a very real fear that a lot of people go through, especially a lot of kids.
Mhm.
And I think they handle her story really well because at no point, like, I didn't have the moment where I was like, Marcy, no, like, why are you making these choices? But like, she's 13, she's scared.
Yeah.
I mean, it's something that we go through every phase in our life, and I think that's why I really enjoy watching these shows, and talking to you. Like,
Mhm.
you're like 13 years younger than me. We're two different generations watching these
Mhm.
series, but we can both get different things from it.
Like, I want to clarify there. Like, I'm not a nerd for the fact that I'm not like book savvy. Like, I don't want to study my whole life. That's more so. But I relate to her for the fact that, like, I guess I'm that nerd in more the way that I'm not afraid to be different than other people, and I'm willing to embrace my interests. Like, she loves embracing her interests. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm someone who does love that and is not afraid to be different. And that's a big reason I have struggled with friendships. And I feel like that's another thing that comes into that, is because while you're not afraid to be different, I've had people who've judged me for being different. So I guess it goes back to that too. And I just, from the beginning, like we'll talk about Marcy and the Gits later, but like from the beginning, I've loved this character for so many reasons, but I just love how much the continuous progression of this character has made me connect to her more and more. I just love that so much. Do you have any other thoughts about Amphibia in general / more character specific thoughts?
I'll probably definitely get into this more later as we start talking about individual episodes, but I love messy storytelling. And what I mean by messy, I mean well-written, emotional, mental messes where nobody is right. There are gray areas. There's no black and white. And it's just emotionally messy. And they've done such a good job, because and this is also going to sound like a slight, but it's not. Like, one of the things I actually really enjoyed about early season 1 is Anne is a little unlikable, and I mean that in a good way. Like, she's a little self-centered. Like the press release for season 1, it actually describes her as like a self-centered child, and I like that. I like that because it gave her room to grow. You know, especially seeing her in comparison to like these like very pure little frogs. And of course, as we get to know them more, they get more complex. But I liked that. I liked that she wasn't just like this like bright, chipper, like positive on life like teenager. She was like, nah, I don't want to work. I want to sit here and like watch my phone. Like it was written so well. And I enjoyed watching her grow into somebody who, like, because she's always cared for people, but she's still 13. And same thing with Sasha. Like I love Sasha's writing. She is never a villain, but she's always an antagonist, because there is a difference between a villain and an antagonist. Those are two very different things. And she's always an antagonist, but they do a really good job. Like at first, she manipulates Grime and the Toads because she wants to find her friends. It's a very noble deed. But then she finds that she enjoys that power, and she starts bonding with Grime. And she's such a good leader, but her flaw is that she's also very manipulative. She's very good at getting people behind her into her causes and encouraging people and to like build people up. She builds up, Percy and Bernice, is that their names? The other two frogs?
Braddock, I think.
The Braddock, okay. She did such a good job building them up, but she doesn't realize her lines and her barriers, and when she crosses those lines. And that's just such complex storytelling, you know? Her best qualities are also her biggest flaws. And I love that kind of emotional storytelling. Like when Anne was like, Sasha, I'm done with you. Like, I was just like, yes. And then Andreas was like, I'm evil. And I was like, no, make up really fast. We gotta make up now. Make up.
Yeah.
But like, it's those kind of roller coasters that I love. I'm not a fan of black and white storytelling. It is just not my jam, because it's not realistic. People are not mustache twirling villains versus like big pure heroes. That's not the real world. Give me this. Give me things that are just like heartbreaking, where nobody is right, nobody is wrong, but everybody's kind of like half and half. And like, I love it. This is my favorite kind of storytelling, and it's so good.
I definitely agree with what you were saying about Anna. It's not just like the fact that she has flaws, but I also loved how immediately they established those challenges she'll face in regards to friendship. Like we immediately see those traits that have come from her experiences with Sasha and her manipulation, and being like her interactions with Sprig and in that second episode.
So and good.
Yeah, it's so good. And it immediately recognizes those, and it gets you to see that this is a character who, like, throughout the whole beginning portion of the show, it's like this is a character who's flawed, who's gonna have to work through some stuff, who's gonna have to grow beyond her friends and like come into her own and embrace her individuality, because like that's another aspect of it. Not only is she kind of falling back on the traits she's gained from her friends, but she's also still retaining that need to get back to them. And I feel like more and more we see her come into her own. And then speaking of what you were talking about with Sasha, I definitely agree. I love complex characters, and I especially love how I was thinking about this when you were talking about True Colors in particular with this show. It's so authentic to like being a kid, in the fact that kids will make mistakes like Marcy, but kids are also smart enough to hold their friends accountable and to be able to acknowledge some harder stuff they're going through. And I think it's so interesting with these characters, because you see the maturity grow for Anne a lot. And I feel like even beyond that, like there's so many cartoons where kid characters just immediately feel too mature for me, and I feel like the ways that they work both aspects of that into this really shows that these characters, yes, they can be mature at many points, but they're still ultimately kids. They'll make mistakes, they'll have insecurities, they'll have flaws, and they'll things are messy. Friendship is messy. I literally wrote that in my notes. Friendship is messy.
The greatest friends you will have are the ones that will hold you accountable, look you in the face, and tell you you're wrong. Those are the friends you want, because those are the friends that are going to help you grow as a person. Like, yes, it's good to have friends that will positively reinforce you, that will build you up, who will support you, but you also need friends who call out your BS. And that's the relationship that I've enjoyed watching Anne have, where she has gone through this journey where she was just letting Sasha pretty much run over her, and now she's grown to a point where she's like, no, I'm not gonna let you do that anymore. One of my favorite things is watching their dynamics with each other, like Sasha and Anne's dynamic, Sasha and Marcy's dynamic, and then Marcy and Anne's dynamic, because they're actually three very different dynamics. And you can see why they work together, but also like fail in other places. Because I don't think like Marcy would be the kind of person to like tell Anne or Sasha she's wrong. But I feel like Sasha and Anne are those kind of people, especially Anne's grown into that person. So it's really great. I love their character trajectories.
Your thoughts about the non-human characters?
I love them. They're so good. And I love the society dynamic. That's something I kind of have been enjoying, because I was not expecting like a social hierarchy until we first got to Toad Tower, and I was like, oh, there's like dynamics here. Okay. And then I really enjoyed like getting to Newtopia and seeing how vastly different Newtopia was from Wartwood and Toad Tower, and that's just such an interesting world to me, and I'm looking forward to getting even more of that. I very much would, hey Disney, I would very much love an art book for this, because I feel like an art book would be great.
When Matt did the stream, that was one of the questions I asked him, like, Matt, will there be an art book, please?
I kicked myself, like I was doing nothing, and I completely forgot about the stream. I completely missed it. I know. And I wasn't even doing anything that night. I was just. It
was my dog's birthday, and I'm like, sorry, Medley, gotta watch the stream.
Sorry, dog.
And like you were saying, I love the variety of character design. I love the variety of like personalities too. Like, and I like how much they develop like so many different characters in this place. And not only that, but when these characters are developed, it's not like the development talks down to them in a way that it's like, oh, you're just a side character. We need to like just remember you're the side character. All the growth can come from Anne. No, it's not like that. And I love how much these characters are willing, like just like the girls are willing to hold people accountable. And it's just like when Marcy first comes, they're not immediately accepting of her. Like it takes some time, like it does with Anne.
That was actually, I really liked that. Normal like TV show would be like, oh, we forgive and forget. And no, it's like, no, your last friend tried to kill us. Like, why should we know this friend? So that I actually really liked that.
I love how much focus they do get, and how they're going to continue to get. Like, even though we're getting in more plot heavy stuff now, we've seen, and this is definitely spoilers now, if you have not seen the season 3 intro, I'm going to be talking about it today.
Let's go.
We see in the season 3 intro that like Sasha is with the Wartwoodians. Like, we're going to get more of them. Like, they're not just going to be pushed to the side now.
So excited about that.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to see how she earns their trust, because last time that happened, she tried to kill them all, and I'm just
Okay, so before we get into season 2, we were talking a bit about it, if we should talk about any of the season 1 episodes, and I was thinking maybe we could talk about a few that we feel like, especially after watching season 2, still are very prominent to recognize. So were there any episodes from season 1 you wanted to mention?
I didn't realize that like prominent to recognize. I did it just because of them. Like, I like these ships.
It's okay. They're still like important to recognize because that stuff is carried through.
The ones I wrote down was dating season, because I just really love Sprig and Ivy. I think they're really cute. I love that Sprig and Ivy has this slow burn. They introduce Ivy, you can tell there's something there, and then it's not really until season 2 where she's like, take me on a date. And I'm like, they're so cute. I love them. I love them so much. I'm actually kind of sad because now they're separated, and I'm a little
They
sad
keep
about
getting
that.
separated. It's so sad. It's like
I
my one like thing with this. I'm like, stop separating them. Like,
and kind of like on the same thing, Hot Pop and Lock. To have like, Hot Pop get a love interest. I like when older characters actually have those moments too. I used to be a nanny about 10-ish years ago. So like a lot of the criticisms I had about like Disney Channel shows and Nickelodeon shows was the treatment of the adult characters where they were almost the children of the show because they were played for like laughs and stuff. Like I will never forget an episode of iCarly where Spencer didn't want Carly and her friends to go to a wrestling match. So they not only lied and went anyway, but when Spencer's got there, he was hurt. He was injured by a wrestler, and it was all played off for laughs. And at the end, they never apologized for Spencer actually getting hurt in show.
mm-hmm.
And for going against that, and they were played off the heroes. And I remember sitting down like with my child and being like, that's not how life works. You don't do that. So I kind of like when younger media actually treats adults like adults. And I like that with Hot Pop, and having Hot Pop have this relationship and showing how Sprig is kind of unsure about what this means. It's always been Hot Pop, Polly, and Sprig. They lost their parents when they're younger. Now there's this other person there. And I get that. Like I have step parents. That's a different kind of relationship of somebody just going, you're not like my blood parent. What is our relationship like? How do I view you in relation to my own parents? So I enjoyed the inclusion of Sylvia into the show because I think she's a very important thing. And she's also now separated from Hop Pop. It hurts my soul. So
honestly, everything I ship is separated now. So
I know, right? Stop hurting my ships.
Reunion, just because like speaking of like prominent episodes that continue to play a role, that obviously, and even it will continue to, because like you were saying, she now has to earn the trust of the Warwoodians, so that episode still has influence consistently, which it should, because it is a really big episode, not just for Anne and Sasha, but also for the Warwood, for the whole revolution thing, the whole just everything. There's so many aspects of that show that continue to like build into continuing of the story. So yeah.
I love Reunion. I love Reunion except for like one thing, and it's that song, because it takes me out of the moment every single time. And the reason it takes it, because this is a pet peeve I have in animation, is when almost like period pieces or like different world pieces use modern music. It bothers me. And there is nothing in Amphibia that set up to have Lean on Me in it. I feel like he could have had a really powerful score in that moment.
If anyone's watched Rebecca Rose's interview with Dana Terrace and Matt Browley, he literally says in that interview, like, oh, we just had some budget left over, so we were like, okay, Lean on Me, that works.
If it works for you guys, totally fine. I'm glad. I want people to like the stuff that I don't like, because I always want to show. I'm always rooting for the show. I always want the show to succeed.
Moving on to season 2, what are your general thoughts about season 2?
I love it. I love the shift, like I said, almost into like a Lord of the Rings type of epic journey. I love that story shift. Like, I love that it deepens the characters. Seeing Anne really grow up and seeing her in these positions. But I feel like also all the characters got a little bit deeper. Like Hot Pop is starting to learn to let the kids go a little bit. That's a lot of his journey, was being so overprotective and realizing that he's overprotective to a fault and almost to a harm at times, to where he almost lost Anne because he was so overprotective. Like, that's a huge moment. Polly getting legs. Polly got legs. Oh my God, that was so great. But also seeing like Polly grew up and taking on more responsibility. Sprig is becoming a leader in his own way, and he's still always a kid. And I like that they always make sure that that's a rule with Sprig. Like, he's growing, but he's still younger and he still has these kids moments.
Yeah.
And I like that the season never pulled its punches. It didn't talk down to the audience. Like the stabbing of Marcy is a brutal moment, but it really needed to be. And they didn't pull that punch. And best kind of animation storytelling is one that does not talk down to its audience. And they never did at a single point, and I'm here for it.
I loved how much this season that worked on the characters more, but also the world building now. Like, such a great job of introducing so much more of Amphibia after being in such a small portion of it for so long. And these experiences and like being outside of their like comfort zone, that continues to push them in new ways as well. It retained all of the good, awesome stuff from season one, and then it added on even more as we continue to expand the world and expand the story. And I just love how it managed to tie all that together in a neat little package. And there we go. Speaking of shipping, all right.
Yeah, I'm seeing this. I did not realize this for you. I'm very excited for you. I'm mazel tov on your ships.
I am here for Marcy and Anne. Even after True Colors, yes, I still ship them. Yes, because relationships are messy and complex, so yes. But yeah, these two from the first, from Marcy at the Gates all through season 2, I was so here for it. I literally love them so much. But yeah, I just want to acknowledge that because like obviously you would acknowledge was just shipping stuff earlier, and like this was just a thing in season 2 for me where I was like, oh, my heart makes me so happy. So
I will say that, and I'm a little biased because this is just who I am. This is not a requirement in every single show, so I want to preface that. But I'm always here to push the lines, and so I would like to see it, even though it's not a requirement. I do want to see a queer relationship in the show. I really do. I want to see that. I'm a queer woman, I'm pan ace, and so like I'm always looking for those, especially in animation. And again, it's not a requirement for Amphibia, but it'd be cool to see it like maybe even if just some like little like frogs in the background who are like same sex and love each other and like they're together, like, or have it be a major character like Marcy or Anne, or Sasha and Anne, or Sasha and Marcy. Like that would be a really big thing. So you know what? I'm all here for your ship, man.
Like I said, I've been shipping them since the beginning. So I had a field day that day because Wing It Like Witches and Marcy at the Gates came out the same day. Maybe I was just really high on shipping juice or something that day, but I immediately was like, oh my god, no, I ship them too now.
I forgot that they came out the same day.
It was such a day. Oh, it was so good.
Oh my god, I forgot about that.
Speaking of episodes, how about we get into talking about specific episodes of season 2 that we loved?
One of my favorite episodes was Toadcatcher. That was a much needed episode to catch Sasha up because we had been spending so much time with Anne and the Planners. Like we did a really quick Sasha catch up. And I'm always impressed with these shows that have the 11-minute format versus the 22-minute format. How much they get through with story, with visual storytelling. Because a lot of times with these shows, they have to use visual shorthands to catch people up with stuff. Or use gags or bits to catch stories up. And they did that with a lot of Sasha's facial expressions. Like when she sees the Anne mannequin, you know exactly what she's feeling. But also having the moment with Grime just being like, you're not mad at Anne, you're mad at yourself. And I also just love seeing Grime's development in that, seeing him pick himself back up, but also still having like the little soft boy thing where he's like, I'm Grime, we will take over the palace, it's going to be great. She's like, you still want to watch Suspicion Island? He's like, I really do. I love that character dichotomy where it's like, yeah, Grime's this fearsome warrior, but he also loves Suspicion Island. And I'm always here for that kind of storytelling, but also General Yunan is fabulous. She's so fabulous. And to see that kind of newt threat, like that's another thing I'm really kind of interested in season 3, that Yunan and Lady Olivia were both equally as shocked about King Andreas, right? Okay. I just want to make sure I was remembering that right. So what is that gonna look like? Lady Olivia seemed like a really big supporter of Andreas up till, him massacring toads. So I think that's gonna be a really interesting dynamic is Yunan doesn't have the army behind her. She said she doesn't need an army. They slow her down. So like, what is she gonna look like as a leader? Is she gonna rise the newts to come up against Andreas? Are they not gonna like her because she was always such a showboaty kind of character? So I'm really interested in that kind of dynamic in season 3 too. But I love Yunan.
Yeah, I feel like the fandom was already collectively screaming because, like, obviously more Sasha content, but this episode itself, beyond just getting more Sasha content, like you said, it's so interesting for the way that they handle, because like obviously this is the first time we're like seeing her since reunion, like the way they handle that whole situation And like, even though she still has, like, again, going back to having that rough exterior, but there's still that extra layer of emotion, that extra layer of complexity that's still there for her. And I loved the way they handled that. And then, like you were saying, obviously, Yunan, let's go. I'm here for
Love
it all
her.
the
I love
time.
her. I love showboaty characters. They're just my favorite. They're just, and give me a woman who's proud of her accomplishments, because we need more of that. Give me female characters who are proud of their accomplishments and will showboat about it, and they will do it. Because if it's okay for male characters to do that, why can't female characters do that too?
Yeah. So we are both big fans of Gravity Falls. So obviously we had to include.
Oh, Wax Museum. Oh my God. Yeah. God, Wax Museum just felt like such a love letter, especially knowing that like Matt Braley was a director and a storyboard artist on the show. Like Matt Braley actually worked on some of like the biggest key scenes in like Not What He Seems and Weird Mageddon. So like it just felt like such a love letter. And to have Alex Hirsch come back and voice the curator and Frog Zeus, like it just that episode felt really special. But it also, as we'll get to later on, I'm going to talk about the Skip Man, because I feel like that was something that was very important that needs to come back. So it did set up some like questions about the show, but I mean, honestly, it was just a Gravity Falls love letter to see Shmebulok, to see Frog Zeus, and it was so much fun. It was great. I love that episode.
Yes, I 100% everything you said. Like, I am here for Gravity Falls love, and I'm also here just for more Alex Hirsch in general. So yes. As I said earlier, I obviously had to include Marcy at the Gates.
Yeah, that was one of mine as well. But you had already written it down, so I was like, let's go.
Marcy Love Fest. We get Marcy for the first time, and everyone was hyped. I was hyped, and then she exceeded all of my expectations, because she is not just an awesome character that we were all looking forward to, but she is also pure. Like, I obviously have already gone through why I love Marcy, but like episode specific things, some of the things I really loved about this, immediately seeing how much she loves the found family trope. We stand people who love the found family trope.
That's right. I love the found family trope.
Yes. Then just embracing her interests, embracing the world, like just how in it she is. And also the humor of this episode too is just so good. Like, every time her cape catches on fire, I'm here for it. Let's go. And then even on a more emotional level of things, and that this kills me now. Everyone has been posting about this stupid scene now, and it breaks me, where Anne's like, I just got you back, okay, and I don't want to lose you again, and it breaks me, and oh, it hurts. But it was so important for those two characters with their whole like dynamic to like be like, okay, I can let you go off on your own, and I can trust you, and just that scene. But now especially it hurts me even more.
Yeah, I really love Marcy at the Gates too, for everything you just said. And Marcy needed a really strong introduction. And that episode actually got me thinking a lot about like nature versus nurture. Anne and Sasha had very two different kind of nurturings in this world, where they're separate natures, and who they landed with is what allowed them to change, because the planters made Anne a more compassionate and open person and moved her away from her selfishness. Grime enabled Sasha and her worst tendencies and made her fall into that. But then you got Marcy, who has just flourished, and even says it like, wow, like she's really coming into her own in this world. And that is just Marcy's nature. And she's in this place where she really kind of for the first time gets to be herself for the first time. Marcy at the Gates made me think really hard about that kind of setup in the series that I really, really enjoyed. And it's definitely gotten a lot stronger over the course of the show, between Andreas nurtured Marcy in a negative way, and took advantage of her kindness. But
that's another thing. I'm gonna keep referencing this energy just because I find it so interesting. But Matt actually talked about Marcy at the Gates in this interview, and how Marcy, and we'll see this in True Colors too, but like Marcy is such an integral role in like the story, and like why we're here, and like what is happening, and the whole plot and shifting things. So he's like, this episode is so important to establish like her as a character that if people don't like, he literally said something like, if people do not like this character, the show will fall apart, because like obviously she got them stuck there, so if people didn't like her, probably wouldn't work out too well. And then he said he was so happy to see the reception of this episode and how people did love the character and love the episode. And I that's why it's just, this episode is just so special for that, because like you can tell the amount of heart just through that, like how much work they put into this episode, because like obviously we went an entire season not even seeing, well, season and a half kind of actually, of not seeing Marcy. And so I just thought it was such a strong episode for her, and I love that.
That's actually about Marcy's writing this season was very important. And this is kind of touching on the next episodes we're about to talk about, as well as the first temple. I actually thought about that. I was like, I at first didn't like that the first temple was 22 minutes, but Anne and Sasha's temples were 11 minutes. But then I thought about it. I was like, it had to be 22 minutes because Marcy has to get caught up with the other two. Because really, Anne and Sasha's temple isn't anything that we haven't seen before. We've seen those are their characters. How fast they had to write Marcy and get her caught up to speed. They made some really smart choices all season long to get her up to speed, up to the other two, for us to have a very impacting finale. So the writing for Marcy was just fantastic all season.
Yes.
So let's talk about moths.
Let's not.
I actually just rewatched these 2 episodes last night, and so I was just like, I forgot about the moth in the basement with the big smiley face. So we have a great sleepover. There's a big moth with smiley face because she's the personification of metamorphosis.
Crying.
And moths are also a symbol for death. So
stop.
Good job, like Amphibia crew. I am not a foreshadowing writer, so when I saw like everybody talking about all the moth imagery around Marcy, and how moths are personification, like represent death and change and rebirth, and I was just like, I'm always here for that.
So many people are immediately just clinging to Sasha's lines, one of these days she's gonna get herself killed. I'm like, there's so much more than that. There is so much foreshadowing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, no.
I mean, it's a symbolic death. It really is. It's a very symbolic death. Not actually dead for good, but it's symbolic. So anyway, sleepover and all sleepovers and dated the aquariums. You chose these 2, which were also both on my list as well. So
this happened with Owl House. We were just like, we all
like the same episodes. They're all great.
Yeah, but other than death foreshadowing, because that's painful to talk about, this episode, besides that, was both pure and had some lore building in it. So we love to see it. So we get some pureness with the sleepover, but we also get some references to Sasha. Again, you see the influence she still has over the girls, which I appreciated that, because like obviously that's still a part of their friendship complex. They still haven't fully broken out of it, especially Marcy, because like Marcy has not gone through what Anna's gone through in terms of Sasha. There's also like that lore building, like both in terms of the creatures in the basement. We get the ripped up painting, which like foreshadows the friendships thing with Andreas, and people immediately were, that's what started the whole pink frog thing. Like people are,
I mean, it looks like spring. It looks like spring.
That was like, people were like, oh my gosh.
I have some thoughts on that. So
yes. So I just thought this episode was really cool on so many levels, and I loved that we got an episode with like pure fun times before we had to start getting into like the nitty gritty with the temples and everything else. And like obviously we get more pure fun times later, but like still like this was important to have for that, because especially because the next episode breaks you emotionally.
And I didn't have a fear that they would separate. I really
but still it's still emotional.
But it is still but actually now in hindsight, where that episode plays, we're talking about Day at the Aquarium, by the way. Now we are.
Now we are.
Where that episode actually really hits a lot harder now, having seen the finale, is the end scene with Marcy and Andreas. Like to watch Marcy like struggling to let Anne go, to go back with the planters, especially knowing that that's the reason they were there in the first place, but she didn't want to let them go. That's a really interesting scene to me, because it is Marcy telling Anne to go with the planters, but that's actually the thing that she struggles on in the finale, was letting her friends go. yeah, there's a lot with Marcy there.
Yeah. That's one thing I particularly noted was it is so interesting. This was the one thing I immediately like clung on to after watching the finale. It's so interesting to rewatch this season and to see all, not even just the hints, but all of like the layers of Marcy's intentions like we woven throughout the season. Like it's not just in that episode, there's other episodes too, especially the closer and closer we get to the finale, it becomes even more prominent. Like when Sasha comes in the picture, it's not just, oh my gosh, I don't want like to separate from you, it's, oh my gosh, I got to keep this friendship together, because like that's like the whole thing. And that's why I feel like it's so hard for her too, because it's not just separating from her friends, but now she's seeing how much this world has still kind of torn the friendship apart, despite the fact that it kept them together. It tore it apart in many ways as well. And then like that ending scene too, obviously then Andreas comes into the picture and that screams.
I love him. I love a villain.
No, don't say you love him.
No, I love a villain. I really do. And I think I'm actually really interested. I'm actually really glad and happy how they played him, because the way they played him in the show actually puts the emphasis on Marcy, which was really smart. There's two ways they could have told that story. One is what we got, which is kind of pretty much from the get-go. They were like, hey, this character is shady. Don't trust him, which they were very clear about from the start. So even though he's being nice and open to the characters to their faces, we know that there's something shady going on with him. Okay. The other way they could have played it was where he was nice the whole time and they revealed in the finale he was actually evil. That's a different way to play it. But I like that they played it the first way, because instead of us having to pay attention to him, since we already know there's something shady, it puts the emphasis on Marcy, which is, how much does she know? How much is she playing in on this? And so it puts the story on her, which is what the story needed to be, because we had to get her up to speed with everybody else. And it actually, the way that they told Andreas and presented him actually was beneficial to Marcy as a character, because it made us focus on her more. So I actually really love Andreas's writing.
Yeah,
it's Keith David. It's Keith David. Come on, man. He's a classic voice actor, man.
But I definitely do agree for that fact, especially because like you were saying, like I immediately caught on this man is shady. Like no one is that nice and not shady. Yeah, and I thought it was interesting, like going back to this episode too, because of the fact that a lot of the theorizing immediately was like, oh, Marcy is just someone who's very insecure and susceptible to like manipulation and like making the wrong choice, like because she's just very open-hearted and she doesn't like she's just very vulnerable in that way. And so a lot of theorizing came about that. And then after True Colors, to see that it's not only that, but there's just so much more to it. And there's that whole aspect of Marcy did open up to someone else, and then that person kind of stabbed her in the back, more literally than actually. Just
I'm so surprised by that. I was like, yes.
I know you said you never thought the planters were going to leave, but I think the whole episode, even though I didn't think they were going to leave or separate, I still think it handled the emotion aspect of this so well. And I think it was important for the fact that like going back to like building up to the finale, even though I knew they weren't going to separate, I think it was important to have that time where it's like, here's how much we've grown, here's how much we've gone through, especially with the fact that because like so many people could think, oh, Sasha and Marcy are here now, so now it's primarily focused on them. They don't forget that these other characters are here and how much these characters have helped each other grow and how much influence they've had in their lives. And so I just appreciated that this episode wasn't just about, oh no, I've got to separate from Marcy. It was oh no, I've got to separate from this. And then here's Marcy, who has to deal with her own insecurities and letting Anne go. So yeah.
I mean, if we're being honest here, Sasha and Marcy are supporting cast members, because when you looked at the credits, who is listed first? It's Anne and the Planters.
Yeah.
I don't want to downplay that, because Sasha and Marcy are very, very important supporting characters. And I use supporting very loosely. This is an ensemble show. As an ensemble show, everybody has a varying levels of importance. So I don't want to downplay that.
Yeah, no.
It's an ensemble.
So speaking of emotions, you included this next one, so how about you talk a bit about it?
I love Hopping Mall. So Hopping Mall is everything I love about Amphibia. It is that slice of life adventure of the week story where it's like, we have this one adventure this week and we are going to tackle this thing and we're going to get it. But then it has wrapped into it this beautiful character development with Sprig and with Anne. That ending scene was not what I was expecting from the shopping wrecking car like roller derby episode. Like I was not expecting that, and that's why I love shows like this, because that ending is so unexpected and it's so powerful. Just Sprig's line of, "Can you miss somebody that you never knew?" Like that's such a powerful line. And then it had the beautiful ending, like the different credit sequence where it was Newtopia, the music was different. Such a beautiful, powerful episode. It actually kind of makes me really excited for Sprig to be around Anne's mom, to have a mother figure in his life like that, and to see that kind of relationship. I think that's going to be a really fun dynamic for him to actually experience what it means to have a mom. The episode, I believe it's the episode where Anne and Polly are touring Newtopia by themselves. And I think it's that one. And Hop says, "Oh, it's my granddaughter and my adopted granddaughter."
Yeah.
And it shows that he sees her as family. And now I'm really excited about that dynamic to go the other way, to see Anne's parents take on like Sprig and Polly and like treat them like children. Especially for me, like I said, I have a blended family. I have step parents, I have step siblings, I have a very mixed family, and so to have that kind of different family dynamic, I'm all here for it, and I love it. And Hoppy Mall is just a gorgeous episode.
Yeah. Yes. I still tear up when I watch that ending scene. Like it's just so
it's your background right now.
Yeah, my background, yes. Yeah, no, because this is just such a beautiful background. So of course I had to pick it. I'm like, what background? Oh, this one, because it's beautiful, yes. Yeah, but like that ending scene, it still makes me tear up because it's just so well executed and so, like you were saying, that line and just like the way it's handled. Do you have any other thoughts on the temple episodes?
Yeah, because I just noted all three. I don't think there's one that's better than the other one.
Yeah.
But I really liked them because it really showcased, for one, they got Marcy back up to speed because hers was the 22-minute episode, which was needed. But her episode also established the rules of how the temples worked. So you actually didn't need to rehash that for the other two, which was fine. But it really showcased like the best of each of the girls. To see Anne's care and love, and it was the same way with the scavenger hunt episode. Like she loves people, she's there for people. That's what she values. So I love Sasha's temple with the like all the like the lettering that's like, "Do you lift, bro?" And like how the buff muscly frog thing. It was just like, yeah. God, I love that. I love that. Yeah, it was really great. Especially with the first temple, it was really great that they didn't drop after the rain. That Hop Pop and Anne were still having difficulties.
Yeah.
And that's such an important lesson of saying, like, yeah, you might have said you're sorry and made up, but you still have to work through that. And I'm glad that wasn't just like magically okay because they forgave each other. And after the rain, it was still a struggle for them. And I think that's a really important lesson and was very realistically portrayed.
I really like the way they handled the temple episodes for a number of reasons. And like you were saying off the bat, definitely agree with the whole Hop Pop and thing. A particular thing I liked about the temple episodes that I actually wrote a thread about on Twitter was the way it handled the character growth, because these episodes highlight the girls' flaws and their strengths and like what they need to work through and what they're strong about and like all of that. But one thing I always loved about these episodes was the temples weren't a solution. Like they didn't go through the temple, figure out the issue, and we're like, oh, okay, I can be better at that now. The one particular one that's like the most obvious is the fact that Marcy, while she recognizes like, oh, I need to look out for others more and blah blah blah, like that whole idea, the following episode she struggles with that flaw again. Like that's a big part of that next episode, is not looking out for others and like too focused on yourself and like how others view you and that whole idea. So yeah, I just love how the temples weren't like that solution. Like the girls all were still dealing with stuff after them, but the temples did have them acknowledge that, and it highlighted what they're strong at and like what they need to work on. And I love seeing that. And like obviously, as you were saying, like the temples on their own have so much more beyond that too. Like I just loved the different little challenges each of them had to go through.
So you have Barrel's Warhammer here.
Yes, I do. I just love how this episode no, we don't just get to like finally see her eyes glow, but like we get to see more of that complexity, like more of that, oh my god, Anne and Marcy are working without me, oh my gosh, I need to be in control, like that whole complex again. But then it shows her vulnerability in the end, because when Percy and Braddock leave,
Oh,
she is emotional about it. She tries to get them to leave. And you could like, maybe part of that is that control aspect, but I feel like there is a portion of that where she has grown close to them and she just genuinely doesn't want them to leave. Like,
yeah,
because you
absolutely.
see those walls crumble. At first it's, we're so close, we're gonna win the war, blah blah blah. But when they finally do leave, there is that emotion there is that extra layer to it where she does clearly care and she genuinely wants them to stay for more than just the war. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I think it's also really interesting to talk about how they each have now, yes, the three girls are friends, but they
Yeah.
also now each have their own friend groups
Yeah.
outside of each other.
Well,
So
it's questionable.
I was gonna say, like, sorry, one of those is, but like she still has like Lady Olivia
Yeah,
as an ally, which I really, again, I feel like Yunnan and Lady Olivia are going to be very interesting characters. Like, how much do they go along with Andreas?
Yeah.
Are they staying to save Marcy? Are they supporting Andreas too? Like, there's a lot of questions I have about them.
Yeah.
But two of them have lost chunks of their friend groups that they made on their own. So
Yeah.
Sasha only really does have Grime. But and Marcy pretty much lost it all. But here's
Yeah.
Anne, who has made this entire friend group, not just with the Planters, but with all of Wartwood, which was why that episode with Marcy, New Wartwood was part of that, which is like, hey, you can't force these friendships; they have to be forged,
Yeah.
with honesty and who you are with time. And yeah, Barrel's Warhammer is really great for that, because that moment was
oof. Yeah. And then it was just also a cool episode to see like more of the Toads in general, I think, and like getting to like set up that next aspect, because like even though their revolution seems to be quelled pretty quickly in True Colors, I still feel like that still will continue to play a role, like, and especially in the uprising against Andreas, like there's still aspects of that, like this episode was not wasted. It still shows that whole uprising conflict complex around like Andreas and everything.
I mean, let's be real, the massacre of Toad Tower could have been worse, but because they were doing an uprising, there's a lot of people at Toad Tower. I mean, like there's still probably a lot of people killed in that moment.
Yeah.
Which just the look on Grime and Sasha's face,
their reaction,
both of their like, yeah,
oh.
like that was. Oh, so good, so good. Anyway, Battle of the Bands. So something happier. So Grime's hard skills, right. And I'm a hypocrite here. And the reason I'm a hypocrite here is because it fits within the rules of the world. You know, the fact that they're not electric guitars, they're like special beetle that produce electricity guitars. It's the rules of the world. And that's why this works for me, because it fits the rules that are already established. So that's why I really like this episode.
Like this episode, and we also brought up the dinner earlier, but these two episodes do such a good job at playing around with the whole dynamic between Sasha and Grime, Marcy, and then the Planters, and the Planters. Like, it does such a good job at fleshing that out, even in 2 episodes, and continuing, because just in a similar way as they had to reintroduce Marcy into the complex, they had to do a similar thing with Sasha, and not just her relationship with Anne, but also her relationship with Marcy, and because these 2 characters hadn't really been together before. So I just appreciated that you did have these couple of episodes before you were like immediately thrust into the finale, where you really got to see the girls interact, everyone interact, and everyone, like, just with this episode in particular, you get to see Anne stand up for herself again. You also get to see Marcy trying to hold the friendship together, and she does that in the dinner too, hold the friendship together, and just all those aspects that end up playing into the ultimate like finale, like, all so important. And then obviously I have been singing these songs nonstop.
I've been singing them. Yeah, they've been stuck in my head.
Like, always singing them all the time.
I love that No Big Deal was redone into Anne's Powers. That piece of music, it was gorgeous.
Yes.
That's
Also, their outfits are cute. Gotta say it
So
now. Those are actually the charms. I ordered like charms of them and their cute little outfits and their instruments, and I'm so excited because they're so cute. I love it.
Oh my goodness. I need more charms.
Yes. Cute music, cute outfits, good layers of the friendship building, and then heart moment again because I will never stop talking about Grime and the heart because it's just so good.
Yeah, I love him. It could also potentially be Anne's goodbye to Wortwood.
I swear.
You know? I mean, because they go back, and she might not get a chance to go back. So if that is Anne's final goodbye to Wortwood, it's a great one because she pretty much sings a love song of how, hey, I met all of you guys and you made me a better person.
Yeah.
And you guys are all important to me and the story. And if that is her goodbye, it's such a good moment.
Before
this issue.
Colors. So we were hours away. Pretty much, honestly, hours away from the episode.
We were. I think less than 12 hours.
Yeah. And guess what Disney decided to do? They postponed the episode. Not only did they postpone the episode, they forgot to tell iTunes they were no longer airing the episode.
What gets me is there was weeks, if not a couple months to do this. They were hyping True Colors for weeks. So this could have happened sooner, and that goes to like my kind of big feeling about this, which was there needed to be full transparency somewhere. And I love the creators. I am a huge supporter of like sport creators and the storyboard artists and the writers and stuff like that. I am not a supporter of Disney as a corporation. The reason why I want them to have full transparency, because the person who took the brunt of the fans was
the social media manager.
Was the social media manager. And it is not their job to take that kind of like that, to be the front of a corporation, which is why that's not fair to them. I think they treat their creators horribly. They treat their park employees horribly. I am not a fan of them as a corporation. And I think that both can exist, where you can love the shows, support the creators, while also still calling out Disney's BS.
Yeah.
And one thing I particularly have an issue with is the big mouse can never be wrong. And that's a horrible way to run your corporation, because there will be mistakes. And the one thing I wanted out of this whole situation was just transparency. I wanted somebody needed to come forward and say, yes, we messed up. We are sorry to the cast and the creators and to Matt Braley and everybody who worked on this, because it was our mistake. But they, of course, they didn't. Nobody came forward and threw out a mea culpa. And we needed to have a statement. We needed to have a statement release explaining why and what happened. Because we still, this is what, a week, we still don't know what happened.
Yeah.
We can assume it's because they wanted to add the content warning.
Yeah.
That's what I assume is the reason. But we don't actually know.
It's like, what did the fans spend forever theorizing about besides trying to avoid spoilers? They spent forever trying to theorize why Disney delayed the episode. Why? Like, there was so much theorizing on that. And that's why I immediately was trying to rationale it. I'm like, oh, they did it last minute probably because they saw the hype and they wanted to give it a better TV slot. Like, that was my original theory.
That was understandable.
Obviously now I definitely think it's the whole content warning and the whole content of the episode.
I'm almost positive that was it.
But back then I was just so trying to rationale it, and it's so hard to talk about that way. And then, but I think once it dropped on iTunes, that's when I was like, okay, I'm not defending you anymore. Like, I deleted those tweets. If anyone saw, I deleted those tweets. I'm like, I'm sorry, no thank you. How was your avoiding spoilers experience?
I actually got spoiled in the place that I didn't think I would get spoiled, which was Pinterest. I was not expecting to get spoiled on Pinterest. No, I really did only see 2 spoilers, and one was a picture of Anne with her blue hair, and the photo was called Anne's Powers. And so I noped out of there real fast. I was like, nope. I was like, all right, let's close that application. That's gone. I closed that really fast. And the other thing that I actually wasn't sure about was in hindsight, I realized I got spoiled on Polly's legs. But but the thing is that people had been doing fan art of Polly, Polly with legs for season 1. So I really wasn't sure if it was legit or if it was just people just doing more fan art, because that fan art's been around for a while. But like in hindsight, I was like, oh, it was probably them talking about Polly's legs.
Yeah, that was the thing about like the theorizing aspect of it, because I didn't see that it leaked. So guess what application I decided to open first that morning?
I'm so sorry.
So of course my recommended was full of clips from the finale, because why not? So I saw the thumbnail. Luckily I didn't somehow, by some miracle, I did not see the thumbnails of Marcy being stabbed. I actually just saw the Anne with the blue hair, which, going back to theorizing, we've been theorizing for a long time that because the gem wasn't fully charged, she was going to have some kind of power thing. So like, while I was upset that I'd been like spoiled about the appearance of it, the whole context of it, that's why when I was talking to you about it, I was like, oh, I don't think it's like the biggest thing I could have been spoiled on, which it wasn't. Like the
I know. No, those last like 30 seconds was the biggest, from the stabbing to the being in the real world. I'm so glad I did not get spoiled on that. It's been really interesting reading a lot of the tweets from Matt during this time. I really, especially him and the cast and the creators, you could tell they were hurt. Especially because they've been, for one,
so much hype art, so much promo art, so much like promotion in general, and
live streams, pre-shows that all had to be rescheduled.
And I just, on that aspect of Matt and the crew too, like I appreciate how much they not only like obviously we saw how much they were hurt, but they also were so good to the fans. Like they posted all of those voice actor messages telling you not to watch the show. Matt was constantly trying to give us updates and encourage, at the very bare minimum, encouragement that it will get news soon. And then he still had the pre-show. There was still all this like work as a fandom to like work to still promote the show and have us still try to get people even who've seen it to watch it, because like it deserves that attention.
Like even like other creators, like the creator of like Big City Greens, who's, I'm sorry, his name's slipping my mind, and like Dana Terrace, like both of them were like, no, Disney is doing them dirty. This is not okay. And that's where I'm saying, like, we need to support these creators, watch the shows and stuff like that. And yes, they're Disney properties, but we still need to always hold the company accountable as fans. That is what we should do. We do not let them forget that they did this, so this doesn't happen to another show in the future. This is from Matt Braley's Twitter. I'm so glad I bookmarked this. Matt Braley says, I am asked daily about the best way to support the show. Ladies and gentlemen, Disney Plus is it. So if you would do what we do next weekend, being June 4th when it comes out, please support the show. I never felt passionately about telling people to watch the show on Disney Channel, because the truth is, if you're not a Nielsen family, your vote doesn't really matter or count. Streaming is different. Every single view counts on Disney Plus. So help us spread the word. Tell your friends, tell your family, tell your pets. Help let Disney know that this is the kind of content you want to see more of. So we are excited that way more folks will now have access to our show. Get caught up and join us for season 3. So let's talk positively about True Colors, because it was awesome.
Yeah, because we did eventually get it, despite all of the crap we went through. Yes,
it was worth it.
It was worth it. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. What was your favorite moment?
That whole part with Spring and Anne, and just like her using the powers, like the whole flashback sequence, and like getting like that extension of the outro. Oh my god, yes. And then, so I love that part, and I love just the way that you see how much these characters have been developed, how much she cares for him, and then obviously the animation, the music, everything in that sequence is so good. And then the other thing I'll say is, even though it's kind of weird to say this, I love Marcy's whole speech, just because you can see the emotion in the desperation.
No, that was so good.
I gave you this, I did all of this for you, like I didn't want to be alone. Like that whole segment is just, oh, it hurts, but it's also like so good, because you see the desperation, and you see how much she just tried, and she just cares. She
because you have these shots of Marcy but looming like way above her is Andreas, just like looming
Oh,
above
yeah.
her. So like the framing of that, I love that moment too. That's up there, and just the desperation of just like I gave you Sprig, and Sprig is just like,
yeah, Sprig's like,
just like slowly backs away, like, oh, okay. Yeah, no, I think my favorite part was A Tale of Two Halves. Because you have the first half that feels like very triumphant, like we stopped the Toad Rebellion, we did this stuff, and the first half feels like very, very like a normal Amphibia episode where you have like these funny character beats where Grimes like, I got you a gift, I should have kept a gift receipt, and like having them have their like spraying against the world moments, like it feels very like classic Amphibia. And then you get the second half of the finale and it's a tone shift, and it needs to be because the show is changing. And this goes back to what I was saying, where like season 1 is very different from season 2, and now we're going into a very different season 3, and each season has had a different tone. And you can tell it just the bleep hits the fan, and just the reveal of something, because we of course know that there's something wrong with Andreas, but now the characters get caught up. And I love Sasha's revelation of just like, oh no, like everything's about to go bad. And just the messy storytelling comes into play. Like Sasha is begging Anne, but because of the messiness of their story up to that point, Anne of course understandably doesn't believe her. And it's set up so well. So I think though my favorite part is from Anne's powers to the end, that chunk of writing. Because you have this emotional height of Anne getting her powers, but after that, from Marcy getting stabbed to them going back to the real world, it threw out every single one of my expectations. Because I had speculations and stuff like that, but I was not expecting the three of them to get separated again, but also get separated across worlds, and also having one of them gravely injured, and also having the planters and the like. There's so much in that like final like 5 minutes that completely just turned the entire show on its head. And I love when shows turn that on its head, because I have no idea what's going to happen now. And I love going into a show not knowing what's going to happen. I think that's fun. That's just fun to me.
Yeah. That's why I'm so glad that Matt was able to keep the episode intact. And that was like another part of the whole leak conversation where I get worried that without the leak, they wouldn't have been able to like keep it as intact. But I'd love to think that he really got through to them. But I just, that's so hard to think about. Because like if they had changed anything at that point, everyone would have known. Like it would have been everywhere. Like people would have been able to see what actually was intended, even if they changed it. So
yeah,
but I'm still glad in the end it was able to be retained, and like there was just a content warning like on the episode and on the trailer, because like you were saying, it challenges your expectations, and it also challenges the story itself. Like it goes to some dark, intense places. Like,
and it tells me that Matt trusts his audience. Because Alex Hirsch did the same thing with Gravity Falls, and Dana Terrace is doing this, and I'm assuming we'll probably see more of this in season 2, since she's getting to play more with the horror. It tells me that these creators trust their audiences. Kids can take scary stuff, and Matt at no point wanted to talk down to his audience. I actually pulled up a series of tweets that Alex Hirsch wrote about after the Amphibia finale, and the first one is him congratulating like Matt and the crew on the finale. But then Alex Hirsch went on to write, ever since Snow White and Fantasia, Disney has included devils and witches, betrayal, fear, and death, creating drama, thrills, and entertainment. What makes something Disney isn't that it's sanitized, it's that it hits all the emotions, light and dark, in the service of great storytelling. When I worked for Disney Channel, the craziest thing in the world was having them tell me to soften and dumb things down, because anything that might raise the audience's pulse 1.5% or elicit any surprise wasn't Disney enough to it. Needless to say, the gift of the devil from Fantasia was used a lot. Anyway, what I'm getting at is that Matt Braley and his team should be proud that they're keeping great storytelling tradition alive, and any network programming genius who thinks that this kind of episode should be hidden instead of promoted should probably work in daycare, not entertainment. But it's true. Like,
Yeah. Any other thoughts about True Colors before we talk about season 3?
It's definitely some of the best animation of the series, and
yes.
TJ, and I know I mentioned it earlier, but TJ Hill's soundtrack is fantastic. I actually really want the whole score. I want all the score, to be honest. But it was so cool to see everybody come together for this Avengers moment to protect the city, to see Yunnan working with Anne and Polly and Frobo, and I actually, Frobo is one thing I can't wait to see.
Frobo!
No. I know. If I had actually any big criticism of the season, is I wish they brought in Frodo just a little sooner. Because I do like that character, but I wish I had a little bit more time with him.
Yeah.
So in the finale, when he does get destroyed, it has a little bit more emotional resonance. Because most of the season is him just walking through the wilderness.
True.
So I do wish Friend or Frobo was just maybe a few episodes sooner so we could have a little bit more time. That's probably my biggest criticism, because I really do like that character.
Yeah.
So he's a big metal baby.
He's a big metal baby, exactly.
Big metal baby, so,
oh my god, yes, and speech. We love to see it.
We love to see it. So,
yes.
Did you have any other thoughts about True Colors that we didn't touch on?
I just really appreciated all of the effort, like all of everything that was put into the writing, and the I don't want to really, I guess, the risk taking, and also just the complexity. Again, like, this show is never afraid to give these characters such great levels of complexity, and I just appreciate that so much. And I think it's interesting, again, because the one thing I noted was how each of the girls' kind of things came back into this, and like Marcy in particular, like, develop her writing through this season, and I am scared for her next season, but I'm hopeful that we're gonna get her back in some form, please.
Yeah.
Because I just, not just her as a character that I love, but like just the way that her story itself, as I was saying way back like 2 hours ago, like her story itself, it just resonates with me on so many levels. So I just really
way back 2 hours ago.
I hope that it's treated with like the care that it is. Like, I trust that they will, but like, because people with insecurities, I've seen a lot of people be hard on her, and like, I get it. She trapped her friends in another world. Terrible decision.
She's 13 years old.
But she's 13 years old, and she has
13 years old.
Like, I think we so often like treat insecurities and like separation anxiety and those kinds of things as such a negative thing, and it's easy to make it out to be such a negative thing in this context, but it's something that so many people deal with, and it's something where, being a teenager and being someone who deals with that anxiety, you will make some sudden choices. And obviously, she had
being an adult dealing with that kind of stuff, you're gonna make those stupid choices. It's not just teenagers.
So I just really enjoyed the way this finale handled his characters, its animation, its music is so good. And just the way it fit it all in, like, it managed to fit in so much. And let's talk about season 3, because we actually have a lot more to speculate about, because one of the benefits to come out of the whole situation was we got the season 3 intro. So
I'm actually really glad we got that, because if I didn't know if Marcy survived,
that was what I was going to bring up immediately.
If I didn't know that, I would be not okay.
I was already emotionally broken by this finale, like, in so many ways, and so if I didn't know if she was okay or not, I would not be okay right now.
Really, a lot of my feelings about season 3 is stuck around one question, and I think it's a very, very, very important question: is how does time pass between these worlds? That's a very key thing, because if no time has passed in Anne's world, then that's going to have a very different reunion with her parents.
Yeah.
But if time has passed normally, then that's going to be, they've been missing for months. They haven't been around. Their parents are probably worried. And either way, I'm
read from your no. I read the notes. There's one note you wrote here. Read it word for word. Oh my god.
Is it the one about the parents?
Yes.
Okay, so I wrote, if time has passed normally, then Anne is going to have to look Marcy and Sasha's parents in the eye and say, I'm sorry I left your daughter fighting a 20-foot Newt King, and I'm sorry, I don't even know if your daughter is alive right now. Because that's interesting storytelling, actually, because we, the viewer, know that Marcy is okay.
Yeah.
But Anne, the character, the last thing she saw was Marcy get stabbed. So she doesn't even know if Marcy is alive.
Yeah.
And that's a very interesting character thing for Anne. And that's going to be such a weight on her. You know, she got to go home. What is she going to say to their parents? And it actually, okay, so this was the reference that I wasn't sure if you would know about. I'm really interested in this dynamic and how much time has passed, because all this setup actually really reminds me a lot of season 1 of Digimon. And I know it's before your time. And but it makes me wonder if Matt Braley, the writers, are fans of that. Because in Digimon, so for any of you youngins out there, it's about a group of kids who go to another world. They get these kind of monster pals, and then halfway through the season, them and their monster pals come back to the real world. And no time has passed. So nobody knew that they were gone for months. And part of the setup of this as well was they had to hide their monster pals from their families, because now that they were staying in their houses. And that's what the season 3, like with Hot Pop and the coat and Sprig, and they were all disguised. That's kind of what that reminded me of a lot. Yeah. And also but there was always also this moment of where every single parent found out about their monster pals, because actually what happened is the big bad from the other world comes into the human world. Yeah. So now the children are in trouble, and the parents fight together with the monster pals to save the kids. And I'm like, this all feels like the setup for Amphibia season 3 here. And so I do have to wonder, because it reminds me a lot, because I would love to see those kinds of stories of how the Boon Choys react to Hot Pop and the Planters and work together with them. What do we need? Like, what is and that's where I feel like time is a very important question here, because I keep thinking about Skipman. So
yeah,
Skipman's actually 2 questions here now that I think about it. Is Anne's world actually our world, like as Allie and Hope's world, or is Anne's world like Steven Universe, where it's an alternate Earth? We don't know that question.
Yeah.
We can assume that it's our world because there are real world locations in Los Angeles.
Yeah.
So I'm assuming it's our world. So if it is our world and it's playing by those rules, then that means somehow a Skipman from about 30-ish years ago came over to Amphibia, or vice versa. And something happened there. Because I mean, yeah, I'm 33, but I've had both tape player cassette Walkmans and CD Walkmans within my lifetime. So that's very recent history. So that tells me that time flows differently, because if Andreas is saying like we went over to this world 1,000 years ago, but a Skipman is like 30 years of our time, that tells me that there's a time flow difference. But we actually don't know. And that's a very interesting question that I really want to know about season 3, because that's going to actually clear up a lot of stuff.
Yeah. That's rough. I'd find that rough on my psyche. I'd be like, oh my god, I've been gone for like months and no one thinks I've been gone for months. And another thing I'm gonna be interested to see is either A, how they're gonna separate out episodes, or B, how they're gonna weave together episodes.
Yeah, that's gonna be very important.
Because while we have had a couple Sasha-centric episodes, and we've had some episodes where other members of the Planter family are getting the spotlight, it's still been very either A, Anne POV, or B, where Anne is located. So I'm really interested to see either A, how they weave together the 2 world storylines, like in their own episodes, or B, if they're going to retain that format where it's like, today we're going to be focusing on this group. Now we're going to be focusing on this group. Because I feel like you need to weave more, because they are all separated so much now.
Do you think this is why it's an 11-minute format?
That's a very good point. Possibly.
Because then you could have a one episode, but have the first half be Anne and the Planners, and the second half
And
be
then
like Sasha and Man.
Sasha and yeah.
Because that would actually be a really good way of doing the 11-minute format.
Yeah.
For each one, and then still have the occasional 22 where they both overlap on each other.
Yeah.
But that could be the choice of it. It could have been planned from the beginning to do it this way. My girl Anne has growth because she has 2 shoes.
Yes, okay, so I was gonna call out some small things here. Anne's got 2 shoes.
It weirds me out. It actually weirds me out that she has 2 shoes.
These are some things that actually were hinted at in the pre-show, which I thought was interesting. So there was a question if Anne gets her second shoe back, and he literally was like, "Oh, you're gonna see that tonight." He literally said like that. She's like, "Oh, you'll see that tonight." And we were all like, "Excuse me?" And then another thing, which is more like I want to cry, is someone asked, "What's Marcy's favorite kind of ice cream?" And he said mint chocolate chip. And guess what ice cream is in the season 3
I saw that.
Pain, suffering. Like
the other thing, because as I was rewatching, there, like I said, there's a lot of stuff from early season 2 that I just kind of forgot about. So as I was rewatching, I was jotting down a few things, and one thing that kind of clicked differently was, I think it was After the Rain that this was in. Yes, it was After the Rain, because that's when Hot Pop shows them the book. He says that book has been in his family as long as he remembers.
Yes.
And which is generational. And we know that this pink frog was with Andreas 1,000 years ago. So that has to be her book. I'm sorry. That frog is somehow related to the Planters.
Yeah, and people are also saying the Dr. P book and Earth might be Planter.
When that book falls, there's a whoosh sound effect. There's a very clear whoosh sound with the book when like something has hit it, like either like a slingshot or something has hit that book to fall into Marcy's path.
Yeah.
And it's very distinct, and especially not just the music box, but the wardrobe it sits on has the Amphibia logo on it, the little 3-finger Amphibia logo. And so the entire wardrobe that is in that store is from Amphibia. So there's a lot of going on that I need some answers for that I'm really excited about.
That whole intention of her seeing the book, it's interesting because like you have the whole, oh, they hid the box here so he wouldn't get it, but then in the same way it's like maybe this is about the prophecy where they did need to go to ultimately defeat the beast and everything. Like maybe it was intended that they did find the box and go, so maybe in a way Marcy kind of is helping, even though she kind of paid the price a little along the way. But that whole idea of the prophecy with like the cover image of the show with them facing down against the beast and then having the power to take down that beast, like obviously. And so I feel like when we talk about the connections between Earth and Amphibia and like how those books and the Skidman and all of that connects, it'll be so interesting to see like how these worlds connect, who's at play in.
Let's say time does flow differently.
Yeah.
So no time has passed in Anne's world, and what if that pink lady frog is still alive?
Yeah, that's what a lot of people think. Yep.
Yeah. Well, I just thought about it myself for the first time. But that no, that's fine.
Yeah.
Because maybe she is still alive. Like, it could have been 1,000 years in Amphibia time, but like maybe just a few months or something in human time, and that pink frog's just living her best life in the human world.
Yeah, and you need those like 3 people. Like she finds these are like the 3 people who can take him down, and like these are the 3 friends, like the ones who can harness the powers of like the Calamity Stones, because they each have like retain those aspects. And so that's why that's that push, and that's why, like you said, the whole time, because it's that reminding me that just now made that make more sense. I'm like, oh yeah, the time passes differently, so that would make sense. Like I don't know. We'll see.
And I know there's a lot of focus on the pink frog as they're showing. It looks very much like Sprig and the Planters. Yeah. But I kind of want to know more about the toad too. Like I think it'd be cool if maybe there was some tie into. I mean, I'm a sucker for Grime. He's my favorite character. But I would love to see some kind of tie into Grime, and so each of those characters have a tie into the human characters. So I really want to see how the rules change for season 3, but still fit in the already established world. You know, to have. And I'm looking forward to the planters to discover things. Anne told them all this stuff through her phone, but they don't actually know what any of it is. And so that's going to be really exciting. I'm excited to see that.
Hope, where can people find all of the many thousands of things that you do?
Not thousands of things, but
basically thousands of things.
You can find me at Hope Makes Chris Watch Cartoons. That's actually my animation podcast. The premise of that show is I'm making my friend Chris watch my favorite animated shows. So he's experiencing these shows for this first time. So it's been really fun going through Gravity Falls with him because he didn't have to do like the huge hiatuses. He wasn't part of the online fandom. He's just experiencing the show every week. So it's been really interesting watching it with him, just not having to have those breaks. So things that were such a build up for us, like the reveal of the author, you only had to wait like 6 months for, because it took us 6 months to get to the reveal of the author. So yeah, I know, lucky, right? So yeah, I have a podcast called Hope Makes Chris Watch Cartoons, a website called Geeky Girl Experience where I write reviews and all sorts of things. You're the first person I'm telling this to. I've been talking with the Geeky Waffle, and it looks like I'm going to be writing Owl House reviews for season 2 with them.
Nice.
So awesome. You're the first person to do that, so you can check that out over at the Geeky Waffle. And yeah. Oh, I have a Star Wars podcast too, but
you're just like, no.
No, well, we're in the middle of our website being rebuilt, so it's not the easiest to get to, but you can check out me talking Star Wars animation at J Guys and Jedi. So I'm super actually proud of that show. It's just we're in the middle of a website build, and it's a nightmare.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Where can people find you, Allie?
I will post more YouTube videos soon. I'm actually busy a lot of other places now. I have a Star Wars podcast called Knights of Ren, WREN, and you can find that on Anchor, iTunes, and a bunch of other places. I also write articles for different websites, most commonly What the Force, and I also just randomly guest on other podcasts, and I hope to release more videos about animation in the future. I've been wanting to for so long. All right, anyway, thank you all so much for watching. Hope you come back next time whenever I make a video, and I hope you all enjoy Amphibia in the future, and thank you. Bye.
Watch it on Disney Plus. Watch it on Disney Plus. Bye.
Bye.